Welcome to Vitality Unlocked. I'm Dan Garner, scientist, performance coach, and Chief Innovation Officer of Vitality Blueprint. This show does one thing: convert cutting-edge science into practical strategies for high-performance health. Each episode, we take one target and run it through a simple filter. Topic, mechanisms, current state of the evidence, and your next game plan. No fluff, no gimmicks. What's going on, everybody? Dan Garner here, and welcome to Vitality Unlocked podcast. In episode number 7, we are going to be going over the magnesium blind spot. It's one of the biggest blind spots in the entire industry right now. I don't care if you're in the health industry. I don't care if you're in longevity. I don't care if you're in performance. I don't care what you're doing in this entire world of the human body. The magnesium issue is one of the biggest blind spots right now. Nobody's measuring it correctly, and it is easily one of the largest, if not the largest, constraint to people living their best lives today. Your lab says your magnesium is normal, and it almost certainly is not. A serum magnesium reading is what I will be surgically attacking and dissecting in today's presentation. I'm going to give you a full layout on how to accurately assess things and then how to also accurately improve it as well, while busting a ton of myths along the way and giving you the science that you need to know. But almost everybody's magnesium says normal, and it almost certainly is not. And this isn't brand new news, okay? 45% of United States adults consume less magnesium than the estimated average requirement on dietary recalls. And we know those average requirements are incredibly low and extremely low compared to what's required in active populations. 67.8% of U.S. adults are below the threshold for chronic latent magnesium deficiency. 75% of the U.S. population fails to meet the RDAs when accounting even for assessment limitations of serum's values. 42% of Europeans classified as magnesium deficient, and an estimated 31% of people worldwide, that's 2.4 billion people, fail to meet the recommended magnesium intake across the global micronutrient survey dataset. This is an enormous amount of people. It's very broad spectrum. It's all over the world. It's literally billions of people with a B do not get the intake. And also, when you diversify, things don't really clean themselves up. Okay, 22% of elite Olympic athletes classified as clinically deficient across an 8-year track and field cohort with full medical and dietetic support. So even if you're going for a world championship, if you have dietitians and food readily available, people want you to succeed. 22% of them are deficient with a D, not insufficient, not suboptimal. They're actually deficient in this cohort. 37% of type 2 diabetics, they come back low as well, and that rate actually rises to over 44% when you measure ionized magnesium, which is a more accurate reading. 55% of pregnant women are actually magnesium deficient in global data as well, which is pretty sad because that does increase the risk of preterm birth and pregnancy-related complications. That's over half of women. That's a lot. That's a big number, you guys. 64% of children and adolescents with chronic disease are at high risk of magnesium deficiency, but with combined serum and dietary status. That number is 70% in adolescents, those teenagers with awful diets. They show inadequate dietary magnesium intake, and this pattern persists. Even if they are healthy cohorts, it's still 70, not 17%, which is massive. And even elite endurance athletes, like people that you think are really on top of their electrolyte status, right? Females are getting in about 256 milligrams of magnesium per day, and males are getting in about 284. And this is in meta-analysis. This is in elite endurance athletes. This is a very very small number of magnesium coming in per day in someone whose probably life goals revolve around, or at least a huge amount of their life satisfaction revolves around being good at endurance, or they would never reach this elite level. These numbers, you guys, are absolutely terrible. If you look at a global level, if you look at a continental level, if you look at a country level, and then even when you divide them into different demographics, like sure, unhealthy people, they have poor diet, so then they have low magnesium, so that's what's driving the country's percentages down. Maybe a bit, but also not really, because 22% of Olympians who have access to everything come back low as well, and so do every other population that we measure. And so many people are low in magnesium right now, even when we measure it terribly. But we'll get to that and a lot more moving forward. But what I need for you to understand right now, which a lot of people actually don't really get, they don't really take this message home. Every ATP molecule needs magnesium to work. Everybody says ATP is the energy currency of the body. ATP is energy. That is true. But 1/3 of muscle cell magnesium sits inside of your mitochondria for a reason. You need magnesium for ATP to work. Free ATP is biologically inert. The cell uses magnesium ATP for actual energy output. If you don't have magnesium, you do not have usable energy. I don't think that a lot of people know that. I think they think just ATP is ATP. What it's going to be is what it's going to be. That rhymed, which is kind of cool. But magnesium is actually required for that. And that's why if people are low in magnesium, one of the first things that pops up is it shows up as fatigue. It shows up as slow recovery for a lot of reasons. But fatigue is one of the primary symptoms, or reduced cardiovascular output, one of the primary symptoms, because you just simply don't have the ATP around in order to make things happen, in order to move forward. And even marginal deficiencies raise oxidative stress and drop exercise performance. Like there is a difference between normal and optimal magnesium. Some markers, it's actually, there's like not really a difference. And in high performance populations, sometimes your band for like how big a range should be is actually larger because of your activity. For example, AST, ALT, creatine kinase, LDH. These are markers of muscle damage. Those markers actually have a lot wider, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you're more gracious. You allow, there's more allowance of a way wider range, even if it's high, because you know it's coming from muscle damage, right? But magnesium's like not one of these things. It's not like this big range that like, oh, okay, having low magnesium's okay in a high performance population. No, it's not. It's a micronutrient. It's not something that you want in even a suboptimal state, let alone a low state. It will hold back your cognitive and your physical performance through multiple different mechanisms, actually. But this is kind of a little graph that I put together for you to understand here. When you have that free ATP, that's inactive. You've got free ATP that's inactive. You're going to bind that magnesium to it. And then that magnesium ATP, that's what's going to go out there and start kicking some ass for you. Okay, that's the active form. And that is why magnesium is involved in over 600 reactions in the body. It's very common when people say magnesium is involved in over 300 reactions. Also, that's true, but it's actually involved in over 600. So it's like Price is Right rules. Like 300 actually is true, but 600 is the actual statement here, and that's why you're using this ATP, this magnesium, for muscle contraction, for protein synthesis, for DNA repair, for nerve signaling. These modern enzymatic databases, they have magnesium in over 600 enzymes, and actually another 200 as activators. So there is an enormous amount that magnesium does, but serum will always look normal. Like the main attack here is if you're looking at just serum magnesium on a blood test here, it's gonna look normal, and it's looking normal just because it's trying to keep you alive. But we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, magnesium's required for your body to make energy. It's what's being bound to ATP to actually make that thing active and going. But magnesium also runs the machinery of deep sleep. So you've got your deep sleep. This is very much where a lot of physical repair happens for the body. You can see people who weight train or highly active populations, or people who just break their body down, they're going to have a higher requirement for more deep sleep each night, because deep sleep is where a lot of the physical recovery is taking place. And magnesium actually activates and allows. It's both in terms of removing constraint physiology. It's not like if you're already sufficient in magnesium, throwing a bunch in more is not going to activate it more or give you like any more. It's not going to do that, but it's involved in the processes for GABA receptors, for antagonizing NMDA receptors. These are the switches that actually put your nervous system into recovery mode. So it was seen in research in 2012 that 500 milligrams per day raises slow wave sleep time and drops sleep onset latency. So people are falling asleep a little bit faster, and it raises that actual slow deep wave sleep time. So you're getting more of that physical repair. Magnesium is involved in these switches that put that body into a restful state to calm down, that anti-anxiety, all of the things that are pre-bed, like you can see in this second bullet point here. Cortisol fell, melatonin rose, insomnia severity dropped. These are all key factors of getting the chemistry in a place where it's ready to have an excellent sleep. And deep sleep physiology, like that, anybody who wants to be physically active and drive the things that change their body and change their life, deep sleep is something that you're going to want to get a lot of. And magnesium, if it's not there, this phase of sleep is going to stall. It's not going to be optimized. Number 3 here, why does magnesium matter so much? Well, magnesium sets the floor for every single hormone you train for. It does. It modulates cortisol output. It supports testosterone and sex hormone binding globulin. It drives cycle-dependent shifts in females and that hormonal balance and status throughout the phase too. Very importantly, it inhibits sex hormone binding globulin. So this does help raise bioavailable testosterone levels in both men and women. In this particular study, it was in men, but it does support it for both men and women. Magnesium is very under discussed. Premenstrual phase pulls magnesium very hard, and deficiency worsens PMS symptoms. So magnesium, and I have other papers on this, I believe, for further in this presentation. But magnesium is important for water retention regulation during menstruation. It's important for the management of headaches. It's important for the management of mood. Magnesium is one of the few things out there, as well as B6, that are very effective in managing PMS symptoms. And it's because of the roles mainly that they play in the hormonal milieu of that menstruation cycle. And chronically low magnesium, it just keeps the stress axis stuck on. When you have, one thing that cortisol does is it metabolizes magnesium, but a stressor to the body is low magnesium status. So you can end up in this spiraling downward phase where you are producing stress hormones which deplete magnesium, but being low in magnesium by itself is a stressor. So you make more hormones and you continue to go on down that chain. So when you are connecting stress, when you're connecting sleep, when you're looking at menstruation, when you're looking at making hormones actually bioavailable to the body, magnesium is setting the floor for all of that. It is a rate limiting major effect in how hormones are going to be measured and managed in the body and how you can effectively optimize them because of that. The body hides a magnesium deficiency through keeping itself alive. So everybody has a serum magnesium test, and what happens, your doctor is going to say, hey, I'll call you if I see anything abnormal, hangs up the phone and never calls you. But looking at the serum magnesium, it's a completely useless marker for measuring magnesium status, or I should say optimizing magnesium status, because no data point is bad. Data is data. The only thing that can be bad is how you interpret data. That's the only thing that makes data bad. But when it comes to magnesium status, serum is just what magnesium is floating around in the blood, okay? But 60% of magnesium is found in the bone. And then you have about 40% of the body's magnesium is intracellular. Serum magnesium is required to live, okay? You cannot have a 0 magnesium in your blood. This will offset homeostasis. This is life-threatening. Your body will never let you have 0 magnesium in the blood, ever. So what it does is it breaks down magnesium from the bone. It breaks down magnesium from intracellular processes, and it allows it to go into the serum, which will then eventually get reabsorbed by the kidneys. But your serum magnesium is approximately 1% of the magnesium in your body. And yet that's what everybody's looking at when it comes to blood tests for magnesium status. And they've been looking at that for decades, by the way, decades. So you're trying to infer somebody's magnesium status from approximately 1%, looking at 1%, and not even getting all of it, right? You're looking at this small inference of magnesium status in the blood, trying to estimate what's happening elsewhere. But like all things in physiology, biology always prioritizes survival. It prioritizes survival 10 times out of 10 over prioritizing optimal function. Your body doesn't care about living its absolute best life if it has a survival situation in front of it. So if you have suboptimal magnesium status, well, it's going to reduce bone density in order to make sure that there's still magnesium in the serum. If you have suboptimal magnesium status, it is going to reduce intracellular activity for that run you wanted to go on today, for that weightlifting workout that you wanted to do, for that maximum cognition you needed for a business project today. It is going to reduce intracellular status so that it can maintain serum. Okay? So intracellular stores, these will collapse first. Like function suffers years before serum moves. Like that's the real big point to take home here. Function suffers years before the serum moves. So you can be deficient in magnesium, literally deficient in the cells, but then your serum looks completely okay. So your cognition, your physical performance, the way in which you live your everyday life can suffer for years before it will reduce in the serum. Now, does reduced serum mean that you are likely low in magnesium? Yes. So that is one thing that the magnesium antagonists, I'm not an antagonist, I think that the serum marker is terrible, and if interpreted. I think if interpreted through the lens of assessing one's magnesium status, it's a terrible marker. But you can look at it for things like dehydration, kidney filtration. It has other uses, just not magnesium itself, funny enough. But if serum magnesium is low, then that actually is a marker of magnesium deficiency, because that means the body has really taken, it has reduced bone density, it has reduced intracellular status, it's at a point where even serum is low. That is an accurate reading of somebody actually having low magnesium. So that is one thing that some people get wrong when critiquing serum magnesium. If serum magnesium is low, it actually is accurate marker for low magnesium status in the body. The problem is that happens a few years too late. That happens years too late. You've already been low for quite some time, and you've already had unexplainable fatigue, unexplainable brain fog, physical weakness, probably poor sleep, probably poor stress resilience. You've had all of these things for years, and then finally the serum magnesium came back low, and somebody told you to take a magnesium product from Walmart. Okay? I don't want you to be that person. I want you to be armed with all of the knowledge to optimize your life. This is why serum magnesium always looks normal in the blood. And I'll always give you guys know, I'll give you the slides so you guys can have all of this stuff as take-home lessons and see all of the research that goes into these presentations. Active people are even worse with respect to how much they deplete. If you are very active and you're sweating quite a bit, you're actually, through sweat and urine losses from a high level of physical activity, it actually increases your magnesium need by 10 to 20%. So that's a big mark, because a lot of people don't even meet the basic recommendation, let alone if they're active, they need 10 to 20% more magnesium per day, every day. Highly active people lose it through sweat, through muscle contraction, through cortisol mobilization. You actually use stress hormones, drive magnesium from intracellular to extracellular spaces, and they exit throughout the urine. And low magnesium status, that is a stressor. So if you have low magnesium, you're going to produce even more cortisol. You're going to end up in that downward spiral like I talked about previously. Dietary gaps exist for a lot of people, and if you've been in the game quite a while, you know our soil is crap too. Okay, our soil has reduced its magnesium status by over 50% in the last several decades. We are ready from a dietary perspective, don't prioritize magnesium-rich foods. We are, as a culture, stressed out, let alone once we're adding physical activity and things like that to it. So cortisol mobilization requires a lot of magnesium, and then our sweat, urine, and muscular contraction already increased our need by 20%. So if you're an active person with a lot of goals, then you need to care about magnesium even more than the average person, not less. Like, you need to, even if you are eating healthy, you still need to focus on it more, because you have such a higher demand for it through just simply how the body operates with magnesium, ATP, and all of these other depletion factors. I got a little bit ahead of myself, but I think I made most of these points. But this is actually a callback to a previous slide on how athletes need more magnesium, but most of them fall very short of the baseline. So this is a meta-analysis of 31 studies on magnesium intake in athletes, and most fall below the sedentary adult RDAs. And that doesn't even account their exercise-driven losses. So this is what I was saying previously, when females are getting an average of 256 and males are getting an average of 284. The RDA is 310 to 420. And that's already low. Like you should be having 3 to 5 milligrams per kilogram of elemental magnesium per day, every day, or at least like just 400 as a supplement, like not even including the diet. So this total intake is incredibly incredible. Like if these people were my clients, I would see that in their food log on day one, and we'd be correcting that on day one. Like this is completely unacceptable. They're going to the gym and training with one hand tied behind their back from a biochemistry perspective. What they're capable of doing is not what they're doing, which is kind of a sad thing because their effort is still the same. Like these people are tough. So they're going to put out a 10 out of 10 effort every time they enter the gym, and they're just not going to know that they have a constrained physiology that's holding them back. Okay? Marginal deficiency amplifies oxidative stress and impairs performance even before clinical deficiency is detectable. This is something I can tell you working with professional athletes is when you correct their magnesium status, their outputs in the gym improve. And they were never actually low. You did just get them to an optimal level. You didn't change their training volume. You didn't change their warm up. You didn't change how much caffeine they had before training. You just gave their body more of the substrate that it needs to replace electrolyte status, to actually make more ATP, to sleep and recover better. These things just come together in a way that's predictable with biology, but very hard to predict if you're not measuring it and correcting it properly. 22% of Olympians, they're classified as deficient across 8 freaking years. And the point that I want to make here, I know that I made this on the first slide. I put a lot of references on those first 2 slides. But deficient athletes actually had a greater history of tendon pain across their 8-year tracking period, likely due to just poor recovery status over time. You're actually deficient with a D. Like I want to keep making that point, not insufficient or suboptimal. When you're deficient in magnesium, I think you probably have quite a bit of pain. There's probably more joint pain in general because you're not sleeping well. You're not as recovered. Magnesium plays a big role in inflammation management, plays a big role in blood sugar control, which as a byproduct plays a role in inflammation management. Magnesium's huge here. And a real important point is that it was significant. Those people reported more tendon pain than the athletes who had sufficient magnesium status. So important to point out for populations who are in pain, which is a lot of people. Okay. Now, serum magnesium, this is basically just the wrong test. We've gone over why magnesium is important. We've gone over how many populations are low in it. But when it comes to magnesium status and how it's measured, like this is the big critique I want to get to here. Serum magnesium is 1% of your body's total magnesium. It's a bone reservoir and renal conservation. They both defend it. Like your bones and your kidneys want it. So optimal function absolutely takes a back seat. You can be normal and actually be fully deficient because serum magnesium is not a measure of magnesium. It's a measure of other things that it can be interpreted for, but you can be fully deficient in magnesium and actually still appear normal because serum magnesium is not a measure of magnesium. It's very, very awful in that regard. And it misses early functional deficiency by literally years. It's not something that you're like, I went through a training program, I had low magnesium. I went through, a few weeks, I had low magnesium. Could have been low magnesium literally for years. Like the lag is huge because your body protects homeostasis in the serum with its life because it's literally important for its life. That's evolutionary biology. A passing serum result tells you nothing about magnesium status, okay? Performance is already paying the price. Deficiency is going undetected. You need a marker that actually looks at intracellular status. So this is the first solution that I'm bringing you here today. I have 2 main measurement solutions that I want you to take home. First is RBC Magnesium status. This is measuring the pool of magnesium that actually matters because it's measuring magnesium inside of the red blood cells. This is the intracellular fraction where the actual magic happens. This is where magnesium is being assessed at a much more quality level. And it reflects your last 4 months of magnesium status because it reflects the lifespan of red blood cells. So you can imagine 4 months from now, you're going to have new blood. because that is red blood cells have a turnover rate of 120 days. So when you're looking at red blood cell intracellular magnesium status, you are getting a much more accurate reading of your actual body's magnesium status over the past 4 months. So this is a pretty good stable marker, in that if you have a bunch of magnesium yesterday, it's likely not going to move it today, because it's measuring the intracellular status of magnesium inside the blood, which is a chronic marker. But this is something that's going to detect deficiency way before your serum values change. Your serum values are basically never going to change until you're in the hospital. It's a reflection of your 4-month status. Repletion of it also takes a while. Okay, so when you're trying to actually replete a micronutrient, in the same way that it's not acutely affected if you had magnesium yesterday and then you're going to take it today, do the blood test today, it takes a while to replete. Like, is you're actually changing your body's physiology. So like, you need to be on magnesium for a good 12 to 16 weeks, or minimum 8 weeks. In 8 weeks, you'll start to see some change and some turnover take place. But like, for permanent longer term stuff, like you want to run that 120-day reading, because you're actually changing the body in real time. And this is what's considered very much the gold standard in a lot of circles for assessing magnesium status prior to true deficiency. It's not perfect, and honestly, we'll do more episodes on this. Assessing micronutrient status is very difficult no matter what you're looking at. If you're looking at magnesium, or if you're looking at different vitamins, if you're looking at vitamin D, if you're looking at all it's tough. Micronutrients are very variable, but this is significantly better than the serum magnesium, which shows you basically nothing. This is taken from some literature here, although I will change it verbally. Deficient being below 5. I would say below 4.5. I would give a little bit more grace there. In the monitoring world, I would give that a 4.5 to 6. And then from an optimal status, I'm really a fan of 6 to 6.8. I think that's a great place to be in. And then point of diminishing returns being after 6.8. But if you want to stay true to the literature, if you want to stay rock styled, then you would fall into these readings. And honestly, I'm nitpicking. I really don't disagree with these much at all. But RBC magnesium status, that is the test that you need. That's the test that you need to ask for by name. Do not ask for magnesium, because you won't get it. You have to ask for RBC magnesium status. If you do not have access to RBC magnesium, you will have access to serum magnesium, which is the devil, right? But it's not the devil when you combine it with serum calcium. Okay? The calcium to magnesium ratio, it catches deficiency way better than serum magnesium. So this is actually a really accurate reading, and a very cool one from a very recent paper. This is just in fall 2025, and I'm recording this in May 2026 right now. But this is like 6 months ago. It's a great paper that came out. And what the calcium to magnesium ratio is assessing is magnesium status in the body. So you're literally just dividing your calcium into your magnesium, and you're in a great spot. If you get equal to or less than 2.5, you should increase your magnesium if you're between 2.5 and 2.78. You should really increase your magnesium if you're between if you are over 2.78. And then you should really increase your magnesium if you're equal to or greater than 3.33. So this is like a really cool and novel way to assess magnesium status, because it's available on some of the cheapest panels in the world. Like just a comprehensive metabolic panel, CMP, most of them have calcium and magnesium both already on them, and they're like $20. They're mega cheap. Okay, so this is a way where if you don't have access to RBC magnesium, which I do recommend, you can still get an accurate measure on magnesium. But most people just look at magnesium by itself if they have a cheap panel, and that'll tell you nothing. This by itself, like, this is arguably the most valuable thing that's in this presentation. I'm telling you right now. This is an excellent and very cheap way to assess magnesium status in the body. Okay? Do not forget these readings. I've used this a ton of times in my career since this paper came out, and I absolutely love it. This is the cheapest and most accurate way to assess magnesium status, and assessing lets you know where you're at. It lets you know if you even need to supplement with magnesium. It lets you know if you're low. It lets you know what benefits are left on the table for you. This is absolutely huge. Okay, so you guys are seeing what my real thoughts are here. Okay, RBC magnesium or the calcium to magnesium ratio. Follow these targets or follow these targets. That alone, like I can't emphasize it enough. Just showing you how to properly assess it, giving you the targets to do so you know where you're at and you know where you should be to optimize your life, that's right here in the slides for you. Take this with you and don't ever forget it. Your friends should see this. Your family should see this. Everybody can benefit from having optimal magnesium, whether you're active or not, whether you call yourself a performer or not, it doesn't matter. Everybody should have optimal magnesium status, and this is an unbelievably cheap and unbelievably accurate way to actually look at it, which is something that's pretty rare in the micronutrient status world. What do I want you to do? I want you to run RBC Mag first, if you don't have it, then calculate the calcium to magnesium ratio, and then try to connect it to a downstream pattern. Okay, what do I mean by downstream pattern? Well, magnesium status is strongly and independently associated with testosterone. Okay, if you have magnesium or if you don't, your testosterone is going to see the difference in that. Okay, magnesium is a rate limiting step in testosterone. And actually, magnesium is a rate limiting step in the over 600 things. And when I'm saying a rate limiting step in creating testosterone or the rate limiting step in over 600 things, rate limiting doesn't mean in biology that it's nice to have around. Doesn't mean, I wish magnesium was here. That'd be cool. No, rate limiting means something doesn't happen unless it's there. It is a rate limiting step. It is a deal breaker. Magnesium has got to be there for testosterone to be formed. It's got to be there for sex hormone binding globulin to be regulated. And that's why you see differences like these two in people who've got magnesium and people who don't. It matters a lot for hormone balance. How about for women, like I talked about previously? But this is directly from Walker's literature, and this is a paper in 1998, okay? Magnesium drives cycle-dependent shifts in female hormone status. Progesterone actually increases urinary magnesium loss. So this increases magnesium needs through the luteal phase. So this is the back half of the cycle. You've got your follicular phase in the first couple weeks. You go through a few days of ovulation, and then you enter the luteal phase where progesterone rises. Progesterone's rising, that results in lowered magnesium status, which results in a need to drive magnesium intake up in females during this time, especially if they're at risk of being low. But this is also why, okay, you see results like this, okay? 200 milligrams of magnesium per day reduce premenstrual fluid retention symptoms. Magnesium supports sex hormone binding globulin synthesis, and magnesium plus B6 combos consistently outperform magnesium alone for premenstrual anxiety. Okay, so if it's mood, if it's water retention, there's a lot going on with magnesium and the regulation of PMS symptoms, and it's because it's a biochemistry. It's a known, like the 1998, you guys, we're talking like 30 years ago. This is a known thing that happens, and it's likely driving certain cravings during that back half of the cycle as well, as the body craves certain weird things like dark chocolate, which is very high in magnesium. You're going to want to go for these things in an effort to replete a depletion status. But it's good to know regardless. Just having good magnesium intake keeps the mind and the body in a better place during the shifts that take place in menstruation. Magnesium status is also a stress resilience lever for the brain. Stress resilience is not my term, by the way. This is a term you will find in the literature. If you have two biological twins and one of them has optimal magnesium status and the other does not, and you expose them both to the exact same stressor, the one who has optimal magnesium status will be more stress resilient to that stressor than the one who didn't. And this, it doesn't matter how many Anthony Robbins speeches you listened to before the stressor was exposed to you. None of that matters. It is biochemistry. Biochemistry, magnesium plays a huge role in stress resilience in people, okay? And it also cuts depression scores. You could see in this particular paper here, 248 milligrams per day of magnesium for 6 weeks cut depression scores by 6 points, and the effect started within 2 weeks. So if it's stress resilience, if it's anxiety, if it's depression, magnesium clearly has a large mood effect. You know, that probably it's probably helped by the fact that you have more ATP, so you have more energy to do things throughout the day. But it's also probably helped by the fact that your GABA system's working better at night, so you sleep better. There's more things that go into this as well, as like lowering cortisol, regulating catecholamine release, breaking the loop of having low low magnesium status, creating cortisol, which creates that stress cycle, like I talked about previously. Magnesium plays a huge role in mood regulation. And you don't impact that many systems in biology and then don't feel the effects within your mood throughout the day. Many people also don't know vitamin D can't even be activated without adequate magnesium. This has already been demonstrated in the literature that if there's a population who's low magnesium and low vitamin D, if you only give them magnesium, their vitamin D will increase too. So they actually weren't low in vitamin D. They were low in the magnesium cofactors, see here, that actually allow you to convert your vitamin D3 supplement into serum vitamin D, which you'll detect in the blood, but ultimately, to what's often not measured, they actually 1,25-hydroxy, which is the active vitamin D in the blood. Magnesium is required twice. So you think about that too. Think about like how many, like almost like I showed you at the beginning of the presentation, right? Like this many people are low in magnesium. This many people are low in magnesium. I know you've seen those things on vitamin D too. Like this amount of the population is low in vitamin D, and this amount of are they, or are they also just low in magnesium, which is responsible for actually allowing you to metabolize and utilize vitamin D? Because we've seen in the literature already that if you give someone magnesium, their vitamin D will increase if they were low in magnesium. And a lot of people are low in magnesium. So you gotta question how many people are actually low in vitamin D. Like a smarter question is, okay, are they low in vitamin D or are they low in magnesium? Like separating those two groups in trials, I think is actually a really important thing in the future. We've also seen in the literature that if someone has a low glutathione status, raising glutathione alone will also increase vitamin D. So you can kind of see how these micronutrients, they're difficult to measure because there's so many different things going on. But I just want to bring this back home. Like a lot of people out here with low vitamin D, and a lot of people do have low vitamin D, but they're out here with low vitamin D and then they're taking just a vitamin D only supplement to replenish that status without actually knowing their RBC magnesium status or their calcium to magnesium ratio. And I personally think that's a huge blind spot. And to go back to the title of the presentation, a huge blind spot. This slide is probably going to get some people mad, but I don't really care. Maybe I'm just getting old and I realize that I don't care anymore. But I don't care. Like, I care a little bit about what magnesium you take, but I don't like the whole organ specific. Like, you take threonate for the brain, you take glycinate for sleep, you take dicitrate for the gut, and then you take orotate for blood sugar, and you take taurinate for the heart. It's like, no, they're magnesium. They're just magnesium. Okay. And I can't even really point, like, people love to make this argument. Like, I can't really do like like an Instagram post about this. Because people, dude, I used to like feel worse about making statements like this, but like, imagine feeling bad about saving people money on supplements. Like, why do I feel bad about that? I don't feel bad about that anymore. And I'm not shying away from it at all. The organ targeted marketing, I just don't think it matters at all. What you need to do is raise magnesium status. It's the same thing as creatine. And when you make this argument, for some people, for some reason, they get it. It's like when you say, okay, creatine monohydrate's king, because ultimately what you're trying to do is raise creatine status. Like, so then don't waste your money on creatine ethyl ester. You don't need creocolin. You don't need creatine hydrochloride. You don't need blah, blah, blah. None of those creatines are bad. They're just way more expensive for doing the exact same job that creatine monohydrate is going to do. And that's just like magnesium status. Like, just get a frickin' magnesium and raise your magnesium status. Like, the over marketing, it's kind of crazy. I mean, like these like organ specific things, like the systematic review evidence in humans is weak or even non-existent in a lot of cases. So the recommendation that I have for you is just to get a magnesium that ends in ATE. So this is what I'm talking about here, like what does matter. Organic forms outperform inorganic. So that just means get a ATE, right? Citrate, glycinate, malate. They're chelated to amino acids or organic acids, and this increases their solubility, it increases their bioavailability, you get fewer gastrointestinal issues than oxide. Oxide's the one that does suck. Don't get magnesium oxide. It's better used as a laxative than a magnesium product, which is a good tool for a laxative. That some people need that, but you don't use magnesium oxide to increase magnesium. Get one that just ends in ATE, okay? However, one thing that does matter is the bisglycinate does seem to be the easiest on the gut. So if you're low in magnesium and you want to do high doses to correct your status sooner than later, or let's just say you have a sensitive gut in general, I do recommend bisglycinate. I think that's a great option for anybody who's got a sensitive gut. Besides that, just get a good magnesium, okay? Just get a good magnesium, and honestly, just pick the form that you or your athletes will take daily. You or your clients will take daily. Whatever the context is, just get a form and raise your magnesium status. And really measure your magnesium status, because you don't even know how much you need or even if you need it. So measure the calcium to magnesium ratio, or measure the RBC magnesium ratio, or RBC magnesium status rather, or both. Take a supplement, retest in a respectable amount of time, and then you will be doing magnesium better than 99.99999% of people. Okay, just seriously, these two things: measuring it and not caring about the marketing. If you do those two things, you're doing magnesium smarter than everybody in the industry right now. Everybody in the industry. It's also pretty cool because I've talked about mood and sleep and performance and all kinds of stuff. But I mean, when you look at something from a longevity perspective, magnesium holding its own. It's biting down in its mouthpiece and it's fighting back. Like a 6% reduction in all-cause mortality for every 100 milligrams of additional magnesium taken in per day. And this is in over a million participants. 6% reduction in all-cause mortality. A 22% reduction in heart failure, and a 7% reduction in stroke, again, with that same number, for every 100 milligrams per day of increase in dietary magnesium status. Now, what's even cooler? Dietary magnesium intake is independently associated with longer leukocyte telomeres. So telomeres, if you're familiar, this is a marker for aging. The entire longevity world is looking at this. Telomeres are one of the biological age markers. So your chronological age is different than your biological age, and people look at telomeres as a byproduct measure of this. And magnesium status has been statistically connected to that as well. So all-cause mortality, heart failure, stroke, telomeres, all of the other things that I talked about that are related to living a great and long life too, you can tie these all back to magnesium. Now, what's funny is most people will do what this next slide is. I went over a lot of different biochemistry scenarios for a reason, because I basically wanted to dismantle a giant supplement stack that a lot of people would do. Okay, I got my blood work done, so let me address one biomarker at a time. Right? Well, I had low testosterone, so I'll take Tonkat Ali. I had poor sleep lately, so maybe I'll have a melatonin supplement. Well, I've got depression and anxiety, so I think that I'll have 5-HTP. I'm going to have Vitex because for PMS symptoms. Well, NMN, that's been associated to telomeres. I saw a study on Instagram that NMN's associated to telomeres. Well, I'm going to have some berberine because I've got blood sugar things going on. Ashwagandha to help lower my cortisol. L-theanine to reduce my anxiety and improve my sleep and GABA. I want high-dose vitamin D3 because I had low vitamin D3, and you just take more vitamin D3 to improve vitamin D3 status, right? Well, I got fatigue, and CoQ10 does a mitochondrial thing, right? So maybe I'll do that. I want to offset my heart failure risk and my stroke risk, so I'll have some omega-3, and I've had tendon pain for the last little bit, so I'm going to have some collagen. Well, guess what's associated to low magnesium status? All of those. All 12 of those things. And by the way, 588 more, right? More than 588 more. I ran you through that on purpose to reinstate the theory of constraints that I always operate through. Almost always, you have one root cause problem that's creating 3+ symptoms or 3+ other biochemical issues that are happening in your body. Magnesium happens to be a giant constraint lever. If you have low magnesium status and you correct it, or even if after correction you move to optimization, you are moving a huge lever to live a better life. You might be thinking, Dan, what are you talking about? Nobody takes 12 supplements. Yes, they do. I think people take 12 supplements and 12 hormones and 12 peptides and do 12 meditation routines and do 12. I think people do a lot of 12s. Okay. There's a lot of 12s being stacked up. And magnesium is just a monster. One correction of this root deficiency, this is the protocol. And you'll never know how powerful this can be, how powerful a basic recommendation can be unless you measure it accurately. None of this matters without the blood test, you guys. None of it matters. And there's a lot of things in blood that they carry the same importance, where you get an accurate measure first and you correct it, and then you've got a dozen plus things coming your way. Okay. This is a protocol that tackled every symptom or singular biomarker that we talked about in this presentation. One mineral was actually the correction that downstream moves every single one of those things. And this person's going to feel so much better after they correct that. So to summarize a little bit here, there's 4 things that the research has settled. Number 1, deficiency is an expected finding. It's not like, wow, holy crap. No, deficiency is actually expected in literally billions of people worldwide. Number 2, serum magnesium, measuring it sucks. It sucks for measuring magnesium status. It's okay for other things, but it's terrible at measuring magnesium status unless you combine it within the calcium to magnesium ratio. But really, you want to just look at RBC Mag or calcium magnesium ratio first, because the other one's going to take years to show up to be a problem. 3, multiple systems will fall together. And number 4, a correction produces massive gains. Massive, massive gains. So measure it, correct it, receive the gains. You're going to be in a completely different position. Here, this is just your game plan status. I'm a coach, so I always want to give you a game plan. Test with the markers. Pick a form of magnesium that you'll actually take, and who cares about all the freaking marketing? Dose it by your body weight. I said this earlier in the podcast because I got ahead of myself. 3 to 5 milligrams per kilogram per day, or just start at 200 to 400 per day and get going to assess your GI tolerance, and then retest in 8 to 12 weeks and keep that pattern moving. Take your supplement, retest. Take your supplement, retest. Keep that pattern going. Stay, and don't just get to optimal. Keep retesting to stay in optimal. This is the game plan to change your magnesium, and honestly, it's the game plan to change your life. If you test it right and you replenish it right, you will move and improve every single system.